This is AgGrad Live.
We have all of the different segments within the cotton.
The show that explores what it's really like to work in the ag industry.
So making sure that we get policy and regulatory issues
straight from the people who live it every day.
Hello, AgGrad Nation. We are back after the holidays, the first AgGrad Live of 2019. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas, a great New Year, and that you are primed and ready to go for 2019. We've got some big things planned for AgGrad. I think number one of which is the 30 under 30. We are launching our 30 under 30 program. This is actually the last month where you can nominate somebody. So if you wanted to nominate somebody, just go to this URL here, 30under30.ag. This is the last month you can do that. We'll be announcing them later in the spring. And then all of the content that we're putting out the rest of the year really will be centered around those 30 individuals. I'm really, really excited about that program. Also, the announcement that I always forget when I do these shows is that this becomes a YouTube video as well as a podcast. So if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to AgGrad on YouTube. I think it's just AgGrad. And then also on podcast, whatever podcast player you use, iTunes, I think we're maybe on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever you use, find AgGrad Live there and make sure you're subscribed so you can hear any of the shows that you've missed from the past. I can't believe this, but I think we just released like our 40th episode on the podcast. So we've had quite a few of these so far. But really excited about our guest today. I'm going to bring her on. This is Brittany Bailey. She is a food safety marketing manager for Zoetis. Brittany, did I get that right?
You did get that right. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us live. I am excited about this. One of the big questions that comes up often is how do I know when to sort of seize opportunities, when it's time to maybe end one opportunity or start another one, or what that looks like. And we're going to get more into that today. But the first thing I want to start off with, Brittany, is your LinkedIn headline is like one of the best ever. So if you're looking for a good LinkedIn headline, here's how to take notes. It says Brittany Bailey, Millennial Meat Eater Mom. Break that down for us. Break down your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Well, it really started when I started my blog on Meeting Place. So I do a monthly blog on Meeting Place magazine called Millennial Musings. And that really kind of started the identity that I transferred over to my LinkedIn of Millennial Meat Eater Mom. And it was this idea that I'm a millennial and I felt like more millennials in the meat industry should speak up and talk about their experiences and why they work for this industry and what they see as some of the industry challenges or outlook for the industry or how the industry should change from their perspective. So I kind of saw an opportunity at the Meeting Place bloggers and the faculty that they had, while they're very esteemed and have long professions and long careers. I wanted to approach it from a millennial standpoint. So that's kind of where the millennial and meat eater came. And then mom, I'm a mom to 2 kids, 5 and 1. And, a lot of that plays into my shopping identity and why I purchase different maybe proteins or products. And I talk about that a little bit in my blog as well when I'm trying out different things for my family.
Cool. And that blog you're talking about is Meeting Place, which is a well-known publication serving the meat industry. How did you get to become a blogger for them? I think a lot of people would love to kind of have that sort of visibility of doing that. How did that opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, so I think it was November of 2017. They had put out, I subscribed to their kind of daily update that they have just to keep my finger on the pulse of the industry. And in November of 2017, they had put out as one of their daily news stories that it's called Be Our Guest, and they were looking for additional people to fill holes. I think they had some bloggers kind of transition out and maybe had some openings or maybe a blogger wanted to take a month off. And so they were looking for people with guest bloggers. So I had this idea probably for 3 years or so, Tim, and just never felt like I could act upon it or I was the right one. And then I saw that and I was like, this is it. This is my chance. And so I just took a leap of faith and I literally penned a blog in one day and submitted it the next day because I was like, I want mine to be the first one that they that they see. And so it started as just kind of that one guest blog. And then they were like, hey, we have another spot next month for guest blogs. Would you want to write another one? Your blog did really, really well. So I was like, sure. So I wrote another one. And so that was December of 2017. And then they approached me and they said, hey, we have a permanent spot opening up for all of 2018. Would you be interested in doing this monthly? And it's just kind of continued on since then. So I'm really thankful to them and really, really excited that I have that opportunity and platform to continue to talk about the meat industry and what I see from my view.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think that's a great lesson there for all of us, which is, you don't always have to have this master plan that you're executing against, especially at the beginning of the year. You think like, okay, well, what's 2019 going to mean? 10 years from now, I'm going to look back to 2019 and it's going to be this big, powerful, meaningful year. Sometimes it just takes maybe that first step of saying, hey, look, I'm going to put a blog out there, and it can lead to great things. And that's cool. Yeah. But that's not your full-time job, right? What do you do full-time?
Yeah, full time. So as you mentioned, I just made a career change to be food safety marketing manager with Zoetis. So I've only been on the job for 2 months now. And that's probably a lesson out there for some of the young ag grads out there. This is my fourth job in my career post college. And each time has really been a leap of faith, and I never know maybe how much time or how long I'm going to be in a position. But when you just kind of know and you just kind of feel it in your gut on the right position for you. So, this really felt like that. I had back in 2016 completed my Master's of Science in Food Safety, which is another master's degree that I decided to pursue. I was kind of dabbling, working in the space with food safety messaging to consumers in my role at the National Pork Board, but I really saw this opportunity come up as a way to get back a little bit on the more scientific side of food safety, and also combine that with marketing in a business-to-business outreach way. And it also involves, I guess, because I'm in the middle of it, a relocation to North Carolina from where I currently live in Des Moines. And so that was a good opportunity and move for my family as well, because we have some family closer in that area than to where we are right now.
Cool. Yeah. Before we went live here, Brittany and I were comparing backgrounds, because mine is bear. We just moved in to Idaho, and yours is bear because you're just getting ready to move out to North Carolina. You mentioned your fourth different position since graduating. So when did you graduate? And tell us about the other positions you've had along the way.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2010. So just coming up here on, I guess May will be on 9 years of working. So I probably have an untraditional background to getting into ag or meat or the food industry, as I really say, because I think we're really all in the food industry at the end of the day, no matter what part of ag you're in. But I actually went to school as a pre-pharmacy major and went to Drake University here in Des Moines, Iowa. And my end goal was always to be in pharmaceutical sales. So I never went into it with the intention to be a pharmacist, but I was going to get that degree and probably get an M.B.A. because it combined my love of science and business. And so after about the first year and doing some shadowing, and actually had a job in a pharmacy, I was like, I do not want to count pills. And that's kind of, what the curriculum and kind of what the program I felt like pushed you just in one career path opportunity. And that really wasn't where I wanted to go. And so I changed my major to a major called BCMB, which is Biochemistry Cellular Molecular Biology. And then I started doing a business minor, and really loved one of those first classes was marketing. And so I changed that to a full-on marketing minor. And then my first job, I started working at a company called Kemin, that is an ingredient company, and they do everything from animal feed ingredients to pet food ingredients to personal care ingredients. And I went to work for their food ingredient division and marketing. And so, a series of promotions. I was there almost 5 years in that position. And then I had an opportunity to move to a lab testing agency. And it was an opportunity to manage people. And so, that's kind of what brought upon that move. In that instance was I was like, wow, I can, add that skill set to my resume and to my background. And in that position, I managed 9 direct reports and 30 indirect people. So quite a large undertaking.
Yeah, let me pause you right there. I'm curious about that. How was that step to managing people? Because I did that same thing. I took a promotion because I really wanted to manage people, and I found it to be much more difficult than I thought it was going to be. How was that move for you?
Yeah, I would agree. So, I really enjoyed it. But at the end of the day, what I found, and I was brought on kind of to manage this one big project, and I was kind of getting to the end of that in my 1 year that I spent there. And I really found that I really liked doing and being more involved with the customer. And that's what my people were doing. Then I liked managing the people. And so I was like, I got to get back to being in touch with the customer. Not that I don't like some of the aspects of managing people, but I was like, I really like that, and that drive and the passion that I saw from my people. And I was like, I want to do more of that instead of more of kind of the administrative and things and the managing people. And so that's when the pork board opportunity came up. And I started out in retail marketing there. And my previous experience working at Kemin, one of our major industries that we worked in and that my product line was in the meat industry. So it was a natural fit in going to the pork board to work on a protein and promoting that amongst retailers nationwide.
Cool. And at any point, did you ever think to yourself, like, I started off wanting to be a pharmacist. How did I end up at the pork board?
No, because, I mentioned along the way that first job was in that food industry with Kemin. And before I moved to Eurofins, I kind of, another reason I made that move besides managing people was I was like, am I committed to this food industry? Like I said, that I spent almost 5 years. It was just a couple months short of 5 years at Kemin of my career. And I was like, okay, do I really want to specialize? And is this what I want to do? I had also gotten a master's of public administration with an emphasis in healthcare management. And so I was like, well, should I go back into kind of the healthcare arena inside and pharmaceutical sales that I initially wanted to pursue? And so when I made the move to Eurofins, and I was just even more ingrained, really, because they were a food testing lab in the food industry, I was like, and then the position came up at National Pork Board. I was like, I really like the meat industry, and I like the people that I met in there, and that's what I want to stay in this, and I'm committed. And then that's also during the time that I applied to grad school at Michigan State to further get more more technical background in the food industry with a master's in food safety. And so so I was committed in there to staying in the food industry.
Cool. Well, there's probably somebody tuned in live right now that's going, look, I'm here to figure out, what does a food safety marketing manager do? And here we are 10 minutes into this thing and they haven't even mentioned it. So tell us all. I know you've only been on that job a few months, but what does a food safety marketing manager do?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's just very similar to roles that I've had in the past at the pork board and at Kemin before. So really what I do is I would say I'm a support function of our sales team. So I'm helping them to sell their products. So it might be anything from taking our research data and helping to translate that in an easier form that our customers can understand or consumers can understand, or whoever your audience might be who might not have the same level of technical expertise as our R&D teams and the information that comes out. So that's one aspect of the job. Another aspect is customer support. So if a salesperson's going on, I do a lot of rides with salespeople, or have in the past. I'm still kind of getting my schedule up and running here, only 2 months in, but doing rides with salespeople to go find out what do the customers need, or what are they thinking about, or what can we help them with. So then it might be taking that information back, and that might start new projects, new market research projects that I might help work on. It might start new product innovation projects that might need to occur if a customer has a specific need. And so then myself as the marketing manager doing some research and analysis on where's the market, where's the opportunity maybe for us to grow and for the company to grow the product line, or it might be product line extensions. And then also it's creating tools that the sales team can obviously use on their own. So PowerPoints and infographics and sales sheets, all those different kinds of marketing pieces that they might be able to utilize. So it really just depends on the day. What kind of I like to think of marketing as internally marketing usually becomes leaders and project managers for a lot of different things. And so
Right.
we kind of help put it all together and keep the glue together and keep things moving and working. So it really different. I wear lots of different hats.
Right. Yeah. No, I think a lot of people think of marketing and they think, people playing ping pong and brainstorming. But in reality, you're right. I mean, you're creating the strategy for how the business runs. Revenue is the engine of the business. And in order to generate revenue, you need to have your product market fit really, really well done. We do have a question here from Kayla Allward. Kayla, I hope I didn't mess up your last name. It's asking, and here I'm going to try to throw it up on the screen. Just a second here. All right. It is asking, was it hard to transition from going from a degree in pharmaceuticals to managing the market, managing the marketing of feed and pet products, or was there a lot of opportunity to learn on the job?
Yeah, great question. Again, as I mentioned, my undergrad is in biochemistry and cellular molecular biology. So, it's kind of general, basically biology and chemistry. And a lot of that organic chemistry is rooted in that's the basis for really anything. So going into the food industry and having to learn food science or meat science, there's a lot of synergies actually that you probably don't realize until you're into it. And so, and the same thing I would say for the mechanisms behind pet food flavors or feed ingredients and how they work, they're all there's a lot of products, amino acids, for example, right? And amino acids are in our body as well. And so having kind of a generalist science degree, if you will, while not specific in like food science or meat science or animal science, which is a lot of people in this industry also have veterinary degrees or animal science degrees. I've found that I've been able to really quickly adapt and pick up all those different things because they really just branch out from the basic science principles, which is kind of what my degree is, and microbiology, for example, too, is another area that I studied in undergrad. But I did want to kind of beef up, okay, what does microbiology and food safety mean? And so that's why I did go back and get a master's of science in food safety, just to learn how to apply those same principles of microbiology, but specific to the food industry.
So I've got a question because this has come up for me personally, and I know it's come up for others. You work for a large, well-known company, and you also blog for a large, well-known publication. Do you ever worry about, like, is it okay that I'm kind of talking about this stuff? What's my employer going to think? I get this question a lot with, like, also side businesses or, just kind of putting your own personal brand out there when people think like, oh, no, I'm an employee, so I'm really only supposed to speak for, in your case, Zoetis. How do you balance that?
Yeah, great point. Well, I was really at the beginning of blogging for Meeting Place. So it was a little bit different because I was for a trade association. And so, actually the bloggers at Meeting Place, they like when you're not associated with a supplier. So that also kind of factored into my decision to submit my blog at that time because I was with the pork board. But at the same time, we still have to be cognizant because we do represent the pork farmers of America. And so I was very just clear with Meeting Place, as long as there was a statement, which they do with all of their bloggers, that the opinions expressed in there were my own and none of any company that I represent, then I felt like that was okay. And luckily, I was heavily, heavily supported when my first blog came out by my colleagues at the National Pork Board. And, they were just so proud and so enthusiastic. And they were like, this is awesome. Great for you. And so that really gave me an assurance. And then obviously I had been doing that for a year when I took this position at Zoetis. So they were obviously aware of me having that. But again, I had that, discussion with Meeting Place on, was it okay? Could I still do it? And as long as I really, approach it from myself, again, as a millennial and as a meat eater, separate from kind of my daytime job
Right.
and my supplier. And so I'm really careful to not interject specific claims or information about my job, or even of one protein. I would always try to be careful and not just write about pork and write about chicken and beef too, because even though I worked for the pork board, I eat chicken and beef at
she admitted it.
home as well.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, a couple more comments rolling. This is great. So Kayla says, that's really interesting. Never realized how much general science biochem goes into the field. Thank you. Cool. Kayla, thank you for asking the question. And then Rachel, I'm going to summarize Rachel's comment by saying, get to the point, which is what I wanted to bring you on here to talk about, which is how do you know when it's time to make a job change? You said 4 job changes since you graduated in 2010. What amount of time with the company is too short? How does that factor in the decision? And I think it's really interesting, especially for you, because I also wanted to get into some more about how you balance everything, because you've got multiple master's degrees, you got family, obviously, a successful career, and you're blogging on the side. So anyway, maybe all that intertwines into one answer. I'm not sure, but make sure we get to Rachel's question about how do you know when it's time to make a job change?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel, for the question. And I think I said earlier, you just kind of feel it in your gut. And I look at myself as a builder. And so when I've been able to come in and build a program and really get it nice, wrapped up in a bow and on track, and I'm kind of thinking about or looking in the future, what projects are going to come next at my current company, that might be the times I start to think about, okay, this is going to be in a good position here. I've really, taken a lot of pride, and I've helped build this and get it ready to be taken off the ground and launched, and it's going to run with it. And what do I need to do next for my personal development, and what, if you will, to build my resume and build my skill set? And I've really been able to learn something different from each and every job that I believe has brought me to this current job. So I can't really say that I don't think any time is true. I've had as short as 10 months to as long as like 4 3/4 months, and so, or years, excuse me. And so, I think it just all depends on the individual. And like I said, I've gleaned something from each of those jobs that I ultimately believe combined and put together has brought me to the job at Zoetis. And so, I think a lot of, in the older generation kind of make us think about millennials or this younger generation that we tend to job hop, and we don't stay in jobs as long. But I think, you have to do what's best to you. And I don't think it's a negative, because you gain experiences from those jobs that ultimately make you a better employee and colleague.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I like how you started with, look at what you're building, make sure you're building and you're contributing it and you're leaving it, better than you found it. I think that gets back to one question I really recommend people ask on a job interview is, what would success look like if I were to be in this role? Is it, hey, we are selling our product in these 3 counties and we want to expand to these other 2. We want to have so much sales or market share, et cetera, and being able to hang your hat on, hey, I accomplished that in this role. It's obviously accepting a job is not a life sentence. So you have to do what's best for you. I thought the answer was perfect. I'm not going to dilute it by adding any of my own comments on there at all. But talk to us about the work-life balance thing. It's such a tough concept to figure out, because I don't know that it really is balance at all. But how do you manage it all?
Yeah, there's a lot of scheduling and shuffling. And I don't know that I have it figured out, but somehow it's just work. And my grandma she would say that I'm just always running. I've always been running. And so I always tend to, much like where I am today, have my hand in 3 or 4 different things at one time. And somehow manage to be probably 95% successful in all of those. Somewhere at some time, something's always gonna drop, whether that's at home or at work. And I think you just kind of have to have security in that it's just gonna happen. You can't be 100% at everything all the time, but I think 95% is pretty good. And I think my track record would say that that's pretty good. And I couldn't do it too without a lot of help from my spouse, because I've always, for almost 10 years now, been in positions where I travel, and I used to travel overseas for 1 to 2 weeks at a time with a 8-month-old child at home. And so I couldn't do what I do today if I didn't have a spouse that supported me and was able to help and pick up a lot of pieces at home.
Great. Well, if you're doing 95%, you're doing excellent. I would settle for a B- most of the time. Take us back. I know you've only been in your current role for a few months, but take us back to either, in your current role or previous one. Can you point to a time where you just thought, you know what, I'm exactly where I need to be? Maybe it was a success. Maybe it was just a moment where you just felt like, this is why I do what I do. This is what kind of makes it all worth it.
Oh, man, that's a good question. I think one of those times is when I've landed a big customer, and I shouldn't say just because I'm technically not a salesperson, but we, the team as a collective, landed a really big customer. And that's where you really feel good, because usually these things take months or years. Sometimes it can be a 12 to 18 month sales cycle. And so when you really have been working and you've been doing things, offering up a lot of time, free services, free data, free R&D, things that cost money, free market research, and you're really trying to put your best foot forward and do all these things, and to finally get that and go, okay. And then you're usually at a point too, when you get that big fish, that you probably have a good pipeline of 10 kind of middle to small fish that you were working on at the same time that, tend to come to fruition too. And it's just a really good feeling to see something finally happen at the end and really get that sale and momentum.
Cool. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for being on the show. Before we let you go, could you just offer your number one piece of career advice to those tuning in either live or afterwards in the ag grad community?
Yeah, so I would just say, don't be afraid to take that risk. I think I've talked about with my blog and taking a risk and putting myself out there. I've talked about my job transitions and taking a risk and putting that out there. I'm still doing it. I'm taking a risk and moving, multiple states across the country. But I really think that it's the right thing. So don't let that fear of change or that fear, stop you from maybe taking a risk, and more than likely it'll pay off.
Awesome. Brittany, thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. So if you're watching and you enjoyed all that, we're going to sign off now, but make sure you give this a share to the other folks in your Facebook network, and maybe this will bring some value to them as well. Brittany, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining AgGrad Live. Visit aggrad.com, that's AGGRAD, to join the community, create your profile, and learn more about careers in the agriculture industry.